So the streets are talking, Victor.
Hey,
Get him, daddy.
don't you walk on me.
Thanks again for making some time for this interview. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
I know I was trying to lock you down for a little bit there, but never give up, never surrender.
I appreciate
over
you
here.
trying, man. I appreciate you trying.
So we're going to dive right into it. What first pulled you toward the outdoors and eventually into guiding and competitive fishing?
Well, I fished with my dad growing up, and he taught me to love the outdoors. I was out with him a lot. And then that lasted about till I got my driver's license and discovered girls and stuff. And I might have had some other interests for a few years. But then when I was in college, I got really, really interested in doing something in the summertime. And it took me to Yellowstone National Park my freshman year in college. And I worked there. And that was a real change in my life. It really put me on a completely different path of realizing what the Rocky Mountains were and what else was out there. And from that point, everything really changed. The following year, I went to a guide school and started guiding in Jackson, Wyoming for a guy named Joe Bressler. And,
yeah, that was going to be one of my questions was what role did Joe play in your early career?
Joe played a massive role, and so did his father. His father was Vern Bressler, and Vern Bressler helped Lee Perkins and the Orvis Company to set up the Orvis Endorsed Guide program. So he kind of built that program and was in charge of it for a long time, and then Joe's brother, Mark Bressler, ran it for a long time. But they kind of were in charge of vetting all of the different guides and lodges and people that were interested in doing that, and it was very there were high standards. And Vern was an old cowboy. He was hardcore, man. He didn't stand for any BS whatsoever. And he wanted you to dress like a cowboy, and whether you're a cowboy or not, he was like, they're coming to Jackson, Wyoming. They expect a cowboy, and that's what we're going to give them. So you're going to wear blue jeans and boots and a button-up shirt and a cowboy hat when you meet them at the store. And then when you get to the river, you can go into shorts or whatever you want to. But when you meet them, you're going to look like a cowboy. And Joe was running the outfit, Bressler Outfitters, and Vern was kind of getting the Orvis store started in Jackson, Wyoming, or helping with that. And so he was still playing a role. But Joe, what role he played in my career is he believed in me when it might have been kind of hard to. I didn't have a lot of experience when I went out there. I was definitely probably the least experienced person in that guide school, but I was a hard worker. I was an athlete in high school, and so I had a good work ethic, and I was really into it. I loved it. And he saw that and gave me a chance, and I hope that I paid him back.
That's great. Looking back, what were some of the toughest early lessons that you had to learn on the water out there?
Well, out there, you had very, very long boat ramps. And when the season rolled around, it was very, very busy. And you had to learn how to back a trailer as well as anybody could back a trailer. And there might be three trucks going across a ramp. You were expected to be able to do it very, very quickly. And I saw that was happening early enough to where I went to the boat ramp a lot when no one was there. But I mean, in Tennessee or Florida or anywhere else, we don't have boat ramps like that. I mean, I'm talking about 400 yards because the river level would come up and down. And so these boat ramps would go oftentimes down a long bank, and there's some boat ramps that are really, really long. I mean, really long. And so you don't have to be just kind of good at backing a trailer. You have to be really, really good at it. And that served me extremely well because I've never been intimidated by any sort of busy boat ramp or long boat ramp or anything. Like I learned under high scrutiny because we were a Wyoming outfitter going to Idaho in a lot of situations, and they were just waiting for us to make any sort of mistake.
Yeah.
So you just figure it out to where you get your rig to where you can do it every time, and then that's just one less thing that they have to mess with you about. But those lessons, and then just also understanding that guiding is a lot more than catching fish. And that's one of the things that Joe and Vern and many of the other guides that were out there that I looked to as mentors really showed me that guiding is really an art form. And some people are really great at it. And when they are great at it, they make it look effortless. But it's not necessarily about catching fish. That is certainly something that you look to guides and you say, that guy who constantly wins tournaments, he's constantly, catching more than other people. But if he's doing that and he's a really, really great guide, the catching fish part is what he's able to concentrate on now, because all of the other parts are just his MO. That's just his mode of operation. He's going to be, his gear is going to be perfect. Everything's going to be clean. He's going to be on time. He's going to have a great attitude. He's going to be clean. His clothes are going to be clean. He's going to look professional, and people are going to like him, right? Like that. He's going to be an entertainer. And then also safety is super important. Like the most important thing is everybody gets back safe and sound. The second most important thing is everybody had a great time and learned something. And the third most important thing is that they want to go again.
Right.
The fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh most important thing are catching fish.
Yeah.
But the guys that are really great at it, they keep those things, the things that you can control, the being on time, the taking care of your equipment, those type of things, having a great attitude and being a great communicator. Those become just things that a great guide does. And not everybody's a great guide. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that catch fish, but there aren't that many that are great guides. And who the great guides are. They are the ones that are booked years in advance, that every year that they continue to fish, they're fishing with fewer and fewer clients because more and more of those clients are taking more and more of their time.
Yeah.
To the point to where some people, fish with, just a few clients a year,
Yeah.
Each one takes 100 days or something. But, the lessons, I guess another lesson that I learned is don't start before you're ready. And, one of my mentors in Key West, Simon Becker, was pretty clear about that. Like there's going to be some time that you're going to have trips offered to you. And if you're not ready, don't take them, because, if you go out there too early and you're not ready and you run aground or do something embarrassing or hurt somebody, that's it. It's hard to come back from that. It's hard to unring that bell. And if you wait until you're ready, those are just things that you're never going to have to worry about. And so how do you know when you're ready? I don't know. I probably waited too long, honestly. I spent a full year on the water without taking a paying client before I took my first trip.
Yeah.
I was probably ready. I was probably ready a little bit earlier than that, but that's what I chose to do. It was just kind of a convenient thing. Like, okay, I'll spend a year,
It's like going to college.
Yeah. It was like going to college.
Yeah. That was one of my main questions was, what was that like and how are you able to do that?
To get started?
Yeah. And just work for a whole year without getting paid off it.
Well, because I had my summer thing that I was doing, And so I was working, I had worked, 4 or 5 summers as a trout fishing guide before I went to Key West. And so I kind of knew that something was on the horizon. So I saved all my money. I saved everything and lived very simply and didn't really have a lot of bills. When I went to Key West, I was able to buy a boat with the money that I had saved out there, and boats were certainly a lot less expensive then than they are now. I don't know that I could do it now, and I don't know that this advice is even applicable now, but I bought my first boat, which was a Maverick Mirage 16 with a 90 horsepower Yamaha and a trailer. Boat motor trailer was under $20,000, brand new.
Wow.
And today you could add another zero on there.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know if that's even possible to do that now, to be able to work summer jobs for a few years and then be able to get a skiff. And then, all I had really had is a small apartment. I just rented a room really. And, a little bit to eat and some gas money. And, you just go fishing every day. And, I did a lot more polling than running around. So you don't burn that much gas. A 90 horsepower Yamaha doesn't burn very much gas. And, I was just able to squeak by, certainly wasn't living extravagantly.
Right.
All I was doing was fishing.
Yeah. So what brought about that move to Key West? What made you choose that spot?
Well, I knew that, that I wanted to fish year round. And as a trout guide in Wyoming, I thought that the clearest path to that was being, continuing down the trout route. But it gets cold in Wyoming, so that's out. It gets too cold to fish. I mean, it's real cold. And so you need to go to another place. And the other places for trout fishing that I knew of were in foreign countries, Patagonia, Argentina, places like that, where you could trout fish. And I didn't know much about those areas, didn't have any contacts there. But there was a connection between Jackson Hole trout fishing guides and a saltwater location called Little Cayman Island. And the people who owned the Jackson Hole newspaper, they also owned, what was that little lodge called? It was on Little Cayman Island, the Southern Cross Club. They owned that. And this was so primitive. It was so primitive. First of all, Little Cayman had 5 permanent residents. Really, really primitive. They had one truck and a telephone, and that was it. So what they would do is they would offer this fishing guide position, which was a land-based fishing guide. You didn't even get in a boat. You just walked. You could catch permit off the beach. There were a few bonefish. There was a lagoon kind of place that was all these old mangroves there. A lot of them were, when I went there, a lot of them were dead. Maybe they'd had a hurricane a few years before, but there were some tarpon in there. So it was a place where you could get a slam, and you would get in a little John boat to do that kind of lagoon fishing. But I went there with my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and we were going to go there together, and I was going to be the fishing guide. She was going to be the cook. And it was very primitive, much more so than we had thought. She's a good sport. She's stuck with me through a lot of different things. And that one, she was like, I don't know about this. So on the way home, we kind of decided, okay, Little Cayman's kind of out. I don't think that's going to be the fit. And on the way back, we stopped in Key West because I knew Simon Becker, and he had come out and fished for trout out there, and he said, hey, if you ever want to come to Key West, come by. And so we called him, and he said, yeah, sure, come on by. And I remember the first time I ever went to Key West was the weekend of Fantasy Fest. And so there was
Oh,
a
wow.
lot of stuff going on down there.
Oh,
And
man.
we had just come from this little, the Southern Cross Club on Little Cayman, where there was absolutely nothing going on. And then we land in Key West, and he takes us fishing one day, and the fishing, we saw all kinds of fish. It was beautiful. I don't think we caught anything, but we had a great day. And then, that night we get to go to Fantasy Fest, and I just remember looking at my wife and being like, what's wrong with this? And so that's where I went the following year. Or maybe it was even that year. A couple of weeks later, I came back and just tried to figure out how I was going to make it. And Simon was very helpful to make that, a possibility for me. He certainly was really nice and kind and gave me some advice on how to do it. And when I started in Key West, there were only 18 flats guides.
Wow.
So, that sounds like, some really long time ago. It really wasn't that long ago. That the flats fishing and the guides there have really blown up. There's a lot more, and offshore guides too. There's a lot more fishing guides than there once was in Key West. So, on the one hand, there was some business to be had, but on the other hand, there was no, blending in. Like I stuck out like a sore thumb. As soon as I showed up there, all 18 guides were like, "Who's this guy?" Right? Like that just, shortly after me, a few others came around too, like Doug Kilpatrick and other guides that are still at it today. But you stuck out. You definitely stuck out. So you didn't want to make a lot of mistakes because it wasn't really what I would refer to as a friendly place. They didn't really want you there.
Right.
They
want to keep it to
really,
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you were able to stay out of trouble, show people that you worked hard, maybe help them in some way, shape, or form, and getting them bait or finding some fish and letting somebody know or something, anything that you could do that. Well, first of all, at first they wouldn't even talk to you. So once they finally started talking to you, then you knew you were making some progress, even if the talking that they were doing back wasn't very nice. They were at least talking to you, and eventually you just keep doing your thing, and then when it's time for you to get some trips, most of the trips back then came from referrals from other guides. So it was crucial that you had, the respect of your peers.
Yeah. How long do you think it took to kind of gain that respect?
5 years.
Wow.
I think that at first it's like people are nicer to you, but they're not giving you trips. When they start giving you trips and maybe even asking you if maybe on a day off if you wanted to go fishing or something.
Yeah, there you go.
That's when you know something's happening. And there was a group of people that was open to that, and then there were others that it took a while.
Yeah,
it definitely took a while.
So, what was one of the biggest takeaways from that first year where you were doing it for free, just learning?
Well, when I look back on it, what I was mostly concerned about was staying out of people's way. I did not want to do the wrong thing in front of, these far more experienced guides. And so I just tried to stay away from everybody. I didn't fish the community holes. I didn't, I just tried to kind of learn my way around and what ended up happening was I learned these kind of strange little spots that, they're not the big community holes, but there were places where you could find a fish or two. And, that was good. I was learning all by myself. If I fell off the tower while I was poling, I didn't want to be in front of everyone, like in a big time tarpon spot or something where everybody can see what's going on. I would just be off, by myself and trying to find these places where nobody else was around. And so what the takeaway from that is that in trying to stay away from other people, just to keep from embarrassing myself and and making anybody mad. I was learning these spots that were not great spots. But after a while, I realized that on the tough days, these were the places where you could go and you could catch a fish on the really tough days when the wind wasn't right, when even if the tide wasn't even right. Sometimes you could go to some of these type places where I was going, and maybe you could squeak out a fish on a really tough day when other people are catching nothing. And so it didn't pay off for a long time. But then I realized, oh, I know, first of all, how to get around in the backcountry a lot better than some people do, because, they don't ever go back there. And I know where a few fish are back there. And then those really paid off on tournament days later in my career. And, just on days when it's really hard, knowing how to fish like that really paid off.
Did you ever fall off the tower?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. I think everybody falls off some, and especially in the Keys, in the lower Keys, because you have this different type of bottom, right? You have like a sandy marl bottom where some of it is really, really hard. Then you get into some soft stuff, and you can get into some inconsistent bottom to where you're pushing on, like, there's almost never a chance that you're going to fall off if the bottom is like mud or turtle grass or something, where the pole doesn't slip out from under you. But there's a type of bottom that we have that, it feels like it's pretty firm on, and maybe 1 foot of the pole is on some firm bottom and the other foot is not. And it slides out from under you. So if you're really, you see a fish and you're trying to catch up to it on one of those bottoms and the pole slides out from under you, I mean, you're going in.
Yeah.
And, so I certainly fell off like that. I fell off a lot when I was learning. I remember when the BlackBerry came around, I was so excited about having one of these things. And unlike our iPhones today that if you get a new iPhone right there in the store or wherever you get it or at home, you can just like sync it up to the cloud and all your contacts and everything comes over to your new phone. But there was a time when that was a real bear. Like, to get your contacts out of like whatever Microsoft Office or whatever you were using on your computer and then try to get them into your phone was a real problem. I spent several days on this one time.
Damn.
And I think it was when I was filming this movie called Chasing Silver, and it was Jamie Howard's movie. It was about tarpon fishing. I was fishing with Fitz Coker, and I had just gotten all my stuff into this BlackBerry. I was so excited about it. It was like the first day, and I had all my contacts in there and everything. And I went off the tower while we were filming that show, and I didn't hit the boat or the engine, which sometimes you do, but I didn't hit anything on the way down that time. And but I soaked that BlackBerry in salt water. And that was the first day I took it out. So
oh my God.
Not only have I fallen in the water, but I've fallen in the water on camera a few times.
Oh man. Honestly, it happens to the best of us. I've fallen in many lakes. Yeah. One time I tried to be a first mate down in Florida when I lived down there. First day, gaffed a 40-pound kingfish towards the end of its tail, ripped the gaff out of my hand. I didn't want to lose the gaff because it's my first day on the boat. I literally jumped over the side of the boat after the gaff, and then I'd pop up and the captain's laughing at me, telling me how the gaff floats. It was like, well, it's catch fish or die trying over here sometimes.
You never did it that way again, though, did you?
No, that was it.
Yeah.
That was it, man. So what were some of the most memorable fish you caught while you were fishing in the Keys?
There's been a lot of them, but I always think about my first guided trip, which was with Peter Corbin. So I spent a year, as I said, not taking any trips, and I had people that wanted to go. And this guy, he's an artist, wonderful artist. His name's Peter Corbin, and he had come down, and I had taken him fishing just for fun, not for pay, just for fun. And I would fish too, and he would fish. And And so it had been about a year. And Peter says, I want to be your first client. And I said, Peter, I'm not ready. He said, if you're ready. And I want this to be a real trip, and I can take a half day tomorrow. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And so he was my first client. I picked him up. We went out for a half day, and he was fly fishing, and he had he had caught one permit on fly before. And we caught 2 permit on fly in that half day. And that was my first ever guided trip.
Wow.
That was very memorable.
And the rest is history.
Other one. Yeah, that was a good start. That was definitely a good start.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there thinking I'm not ready. And I come home and my friends are like, "Well, how'd it go?" I'm like, "Well, I caught 2 permit on fly." They're like, "What?" Like that was a really big day back then. Like not a lot of people were catching multiple permit on fly like maybe they can today. And so, it was kind of funny because I just didn't think I was ready at all. And, it turns out I guess I was ready, but also I didn't let that get to my head. I mean, everybody gets a little bit lucky. It's a beautiful day.
Right.
I got a guy that can cast.
Yeah.
I know where some fish are. And it happened. It worked for us. It happened. We caught 2 of them, and it was fantastic.
Definitely must have been a nice confidence boost there.
Yeah, it was a confidence boost, but at the same time too, it really put the pressure on.
Yeah, now you got to do it again.
That's my first trip, right? Now what am I going to do my second trip?
Yeah, right. Oh man, that's great. That's great. I want to ask you about this too. You participated in the ESPN Great Outdoor Games in 2000. You took silver in the fly category and gold overall. What was that experience like for you?
That was a wonderful, amazing experience. The way that happened was that I was, I told you I started working with the Orvis Company. And then when I went down to Key West, my friend Simon, he was the Orvis endorsed guide in Key West. So it was kind of blocked. They didn't really have 2 people in the same area. And so I never thought that was going to be a possibility to be an Orvis endorsed guide. But one year, after I'd been doing it for a while, they were like, well, I think we might expand some of these territories. Like Key West would be one of them. And so there was this opportunity that I might be able to be considered for the Orvis endorsed guide program. And I thought that was fantastic. But at the same time, I was also started to work with some other people. I started working met the guys from Scott Fly Rod, and I was fishing with Jim Vincent of Rio Fly Lines, and there's some other people I was fishing with, but primarily those 2, Scott Fly Rods and Rio Fly Lines. So I kind of came to this crossroads of like, should I go down the path of being an Orvis endorsed guide, only using Orvis equipment and all this, or should I, here's 2 people that are offering some sort of a sponsorship kind of thing, which at the time it was in its infancy here for me of what sponsorship even was. But they were going to give me something in return for knowledge, taking them fishing, other things. So in the case of Scott Fly Rods, they wanted me to help them design a saltwater line of fly rods. And that was the STS line of fly rods. And so I kind of looked at this situation. I was like, I could go to the Orvis thing and do it like this, or I could go down this other road, which is a total unknown, but it seems more exciting, more interesting. I'm having a good time with these guys. They're really, really close to my age. Jim Barchi was the rod designer there. I really liked him. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to go down, say no to the Orvis thing. I'm going to say yes to Jim Barchi and say yes to Jim Vincent. And I'm going to start working with these 2 companies and see where it goes. And so we designed this STS line of rods. I spent a lot of time with those guys. We really came up with something that was really, really special, I thought. And when the ESPN Great Outdoor Games came around, the first people that they went to were the fly rod companies and said, hey, if we were to have this competition, who would your representative be? And so Scott was like, well, our guy's Tom Rowland. And so that's how I got in that one.
Nice.
There were no qualifications or anything like that. It was simply kind of an industry kind of thing. Like,
yeah, word of mouth.
Who would you put up there? And it was all from the rod companies, because there were only, I don't know, I'm looking at the poster right now. There were only like probably 12 people in that competition. So It was a made for TV kind of thing. And so, all the different fly rod companies put their guy up there. So we had all the top dogs in the industry, and me, I was the kid, and which was a really weird thing, because you go to this thing and here are your heroes. Literally, I read all the fly fishing books. I studied all the back then it was VHS tapes. I knew all of these people. I knew all about them, and I didn't really feel like I belonged there, but I knew going in that I was probably going to be maybe not as good as some of the other people. So I learned about this competition maybe 6 months ahead of time. We all did. And I guess everybody had the same opportunity to practice and everything, but I practiced a lot. And I went out to the Key West football field every afternoon with my friend Greg Allen. And we practiced distance casting and we practiced accuracy, because I knew that those were we were going to have two competitions. There was going to be one for straight distance, and I just asked and asked and asked any details I could get. And I knew that it was going to be with any off the shelf 5-weight fly rod that you could buy in a store. You couldn't customize it or anything like that. And then I knew that Cortland was going to be a sponsor. And so I got all the different 5-weight Cortland lines, and you weren't going to be able to customize your lines or customize anything. It was going to be an off the shelf. Everybody was going to use the same line, and then you could bring whatever rod you wanted as long as it was commercially available to anyone. And so I had a Scott 5-weight, and I just practiced and practiced and practiced. I had Scott send me all their different 5-weights. And it turned out the one that I could cast the furthest with was their cheapest rod that they made, the Scott Alpha. And so anyway, I just practiced and practiced and practiced. And when I got there, I was very confident. I was intimidated by all these other people and their reputations and everything, but I was very confident that I had done everything that I could do to prepare myself as well as I could be prepared for that. And it turns out it worked. I did well in the casting, which the way it worked is if your place in the casting allowed you that position on the river. So if you got first in the casting, you got first pick on the river, and you could pick between the morning or the afternoon, and then you could pick the beat that you wanted. They had the river split up into these different beats. And so I got second pick, and I picked a good stretch, and went out there, and I caught a fish. I can remember it exactly. It was 18.5 inches long, trout, and it was fat. It had a good girth on it. And the way that the competition worked is that you could fish as long as you wanted to, but when you caught a fish that you measured and said, "This is my fish," you had to stop fishing. And that was it. So you could catch one fish, you could catch 200 fish. If you caught a 10-pounder in the beginning, you said, "I think I'll catch a bigger one," and you never caught a bigger one, then that one didn't even count towards your score. So there was some strategy involved. I caught a few fish, and I caught this one that I thought was pretty big for this river. And turns out that I tied with one of my angling heroes of all time, Doug Swisher.
Nice.
And he had an 18.5-inch fish as well. And I beat him on girth.
Nice. There we go.
Yeah. And that's how I won that one. And that was a really big deal. That was a really big deal for my career, because there were, like you ask about hard lessons and different lessons that I'd learned on my first year of guiding, but this was probably the one lesson that I learned in my entire career that was one of the most valuable, but also shaped so much of the rest of my career is I won that tournament. This was on ABC Sports. It was on ESPN. There were 17 million people tuned in to watch this,
Wow.
right? So it was a big deal. And I get home and I'm like, well, that's it. The phone is going to be ringing off the hook. And I got home and I never got a single phone call. I mean, my friends are like, hey, that was cool. You know, what was it like?
Yeah.
I never got a single company call, not one offer of sponsorship, nothing.
Damn.
And I remember I had this friend of mine that was a writer, and I said, you know, what's going on here? And he said, oh, nobody's going to call you. Nobody's calling. He goes, you gotta make it happen. I was like, well, how do you make it happen? He goes, well, you know, first thing, you know, I could write an article about it, but you know, I'm just a little local newspaper. You need to be contacting these writers. You need to be contacting the TV shows. You need to reach out to these people and say, hey, I've got a story for you, because they're not going to find you. And I was like, really? That's how you do it? Like if you win the Olympics, that's what you do? And he goes, you better believe it. Not only that, they'll hire a PR agency, you know, to make contact for them and set up all these interviews and everything. And I was just like, wow, I can't believe that. So I couldn't believe that no one was calling at all. And then I also couldn't believe what the response was when I did exactly what he said and presented a story, which was an interesting story. I called all these different TV shows, like the John Barrett shows, Fly Fishing the World and Fly Fishing America. I got in touch with them somehow without internet and, you know, found their phone number, wrote them a handwritten letter. I don't know. We didn't have internet back then. And, or maybe we did in 2000, but you know, email was in its infancy.
Yeah.
At the best. And I would call them and say, hey, I've got an interesting story for you. I am a Key West fishing guide, and I just won this international freshwater fly fishing competition. Kind of an interesting hook there. How does a saltwater guy win this freshwater fly fishing competition against all of these industry professionals? And pretty much everybody I pitched that to was like, that's great. And I said, now, if you come down here, you know, I'll take you fishing. We'll do a show about saltwater fishing. And every single person that I offered that to did it. And in the next couple of years, I filmed about 30 different TV shows.
Wow.
And that was the start of my television career, because I got to know some of these people. I saw how they operated. And then later, when we were fishing the redfish tournaments, kind of the door to the TV show opened for me when I'm trying to be a professional red fisherman, which was a tough row to hoe, big time. It's less money than bass fishing, and you have a partner that you have to split all the money with. So you have twice the expenses, half the money, and you split it, or not even half the money, like a fraction of the money that the bass guys win when they win a tournament. But anyway, I was on one of those tournaments in Louisiana, and Hurricane Charlie came over the Keys, and my wife was at home with my two boys in Key West, and I was miserable. I was so miserable. I did not want to be there anymore. I had enough of tournament fishing. I did not want to be away from my family ever again like that. It was probably the most helpless situation I've ever felt. And I just told my partner, Rich, I was like, look, man, I'm done tournament fishing. I'm done with this. I'm just going to go back. I'll be a fishing guide. And that's it. And so we left Louisiana and drove in silence to about Orlando, which is about 10 hours. And he's like, so if we didn't do tournaments, like what would we do? And I was like, I don't know. I guess we could do a TV show. He's like, what do you know about doing a TV show? I don't know. I've done 30 of them. Didn't seem that hard. Which, honestly, it was naive. I was very naive. I saw what goes into filming a TV show. I didn't know what went into owning, managing, keeping a TV show running, and actually going out there and filming a TV show. That's not that hard. It's all the other part that's really hard.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how we got started in the TV show, was simply that experience that I had from all those different shows coming down and filming with me after the Great Outdoor Games, and just having that opportunity and not wanting to tournament fish or that not those kind of tournaments anymore, because I didn't want to be away from my family.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. What were some of the toughest challenges in the beginning of the show that you had to overcome?
How much it cost.
Okay.
Because things, so many things have changed with the TV, but back then there were a lot more gatekeepers. You know, there were gatekeepers at the network. There were gatekeepers all over the place where, you know, you just didn't get on TV or without, you had to do a lot of things. You had to jump through a lot of hoops, and some of those hoops that you had to jump through were extremely expensive. For example, you had to film with certain cameras for it to be TV quality. And those cameras, you wouldn't prop the door open with one of those cameras today, but those things were $100,000.
Wow.
And in fact, you didn't buy them, you just rented them. And so there were significant barriers to entry for TV, not only just the gear that you had to use, but who could use that gear. And so you had to hire a professional crew. They all had to be using the right equipment. You had to get it edited to network specifications. And then you had to go around and shop it to the networks, even to do what's called a time buy. That's where you buy the time from the network. And they wouldn't even let you buy the time. I mean, it was pretty competitive. It was very competitive back then. And so you had to have a good reputation. You know, you had to be somebody that the network was going to be proud to have on their network. Your show had to be, you know, good quality, and certainly as good a quality as the shows that were going to be around you. And at this time, you know, I'm hoping to be on ESPN, you know, right by Walker's Cay and Spanish Fly and all those shows. So the show had to be good. It had to be really good. And so we had to get good people, because we certainly didn't know how to do it. So the challenges were, where do you find those people? How do you meet them? And then how do we pay them? And we had some sponsorship from the redfish tournaments. And we simply went to the sponsors and asked them, like, look, this is what we were doing, and you were paying us this much money, and this is what we want to do. Would you take that same amount of money and apply it over here? And all the sponsors were really happy about it. That's when I first started learning about what sponsorship really is. And sponsorship, you know, the only reason anybody sponsors anybody is so that it'll increase their bottom line. Like, it doesn't matter how good a fisherman you are or what. Can you influence people to buy products? And if you can't, then they're not going to sponsor you.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. And so they were excited about it, because they were like, look, you know, we know that you guys are pretty good at red fishing and all that, and eventually you're going to win something. And eventually, you know, we're betting that eventually you're going to win, and eventually it's going to pay off for both of us. Like, we're going to sell a bunch of stuff. You're going to, do well as well. But the TV show was different, because they knew that every weekend a lot of people were going to be watching. They knew exactly how many people were going to be watching. And they knew that it was going to run 12 times or 24 times or how much ever airtime you had. And they knew what network it was going to be on, and you could tell them what time it was going to be on. And everything changed right then, because now it wasn't like a bet anymore. Now they could have a reasonable return on investment. They could say, okay, if we spend this much money and we get those kind of ratings, and these guys represent our product like we want them to, we feel like we're going to get our investment back plus. And so that was big. And those were all lessons. I mean, the big lessons were how sponsorship works, how to maintain sponsorship relationships with these different companies in the industry. And then just, you know, that's a whole different business that we didn't know at all.
It's another art form.
Yeah, it's an art form. And you know, there aren't a lot of people that are going to help you with that.
Yeah.
I mean, some chose not to help on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Some didn't really know. And then a few people were extremely helpful. Bill Dance, Shaw Grigsby, both of those guys were extremely helpful. They would answer any question I had.
Nice.
And not everybody was like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Bill's a great guy. I've had him on the show.
Really great.
Legend.
He's really great.
Legend,
Yes.
man. That's so cool. That's so cool, man. So yeah, you got it popping. What year was that you started it?
Well, this is our 21st season.
Wow.
So I think, what is that? 2002 or 3, maybe? I don't know.
Wow.
Right in there. 2000.
That's so cool.
2003. So like even before, like if we've had 21 seasons, then we've probably been doing it for like almost 24 years, because there was a significant amount of time where we were playing with the concept and like hiring people to try to do a pilot, which took about a year back then. Like, I hired some people and it didn't turn out very well. We weren't happy with it. And so then you have to scrap all that and start over again. So,
yeah.
If we've been doing it for 21 years, 21 seasons, we've been doing it for about 23 years, probably.
Wow. That's crazy. So let me ask you this. You and Rich have been doing this for so long. Has the relationship always been gravy, or, were there certain times you guys didn't see eye to eye? How did you keep that partnership going this whole time?
Well, I think that's one of the interesting things about our relationship, is that we don't see eye to eye most times. And we have, like, for example, I started out in the fly fishing world and had kind of a mentor that taught me how to fish, or taught me how to guide. He started off in the offshore world as a mate and had a different approach, even just at the fundamental starting of our careers. And so I don't know that we have ever really seen things the same, but that's also one of the greatest parts about our partnership, is that we talk things through, and I understand that he's got a lot of knowledge that I don't have, and he understands that I have a lot of knowledge that he doesn't have. Also, he's really good at numbers and sales, and I'm way better at creativity and even communicating and talking with our creative staff, like our editors and photographers and videographers and things like that. And so one person isn't going to be able to do all of those things really well. That's what I've learned. Each person has different skill sets. So his skill sets, we use him for his and use me for mine. And that keeps both of us from having to do things that we don't really like to do. And it keeps both of us doing the things that we're good at. And so, a lot of times we don't see eye to eye, but we've always worked through it and found the best possible path to try to use both of our strengths where we should.
That's great. Sounds like some great teamwork right there. You mentioned you played sports in high school. I'm just wondering, which one were you playing?
Wrestling was my sport.
Cool.
I played a lot of different sports, but wrestling was the one that I focused on.
Nice. So out of all these episodes, are there a few that really stand out as like your favorite?
Yeah. Probably the ones that I've been able to do with my family. I had, Rich and I had both of our dads on a show one time at the same time. So we took our dads fishing at Long Key Bridge and caught permit and tarpon. And then we had a hammerhead attack. One of the tarpons, made for an exciting episode. And it was just cool. Rich's dad's passed now. My dad is 87, still very healthy and alive. But that one was very meaningful. Another one that was very meaningful, my oldest son, Turner, he had an issue with his eyes, this disease called keratoconus. And so what keratoconus does is it, instead of your eye kind of looking like a basketball, your eyeball wants to take the shape of a football. And so it wants to kind of develop a little point at the end of it, which you can't see very well. And a lot of famous people have had this issue as well. And one of the famous people that have had it was an Olympic bobsled driver named Stephen Holcomb. And when I first learned about Turner's condition, we were told that the only way that he was going to be able to be treated was they would cut the cornea off of a cadaver, and then they would cut his cornea off, and then they would do this cornea transplant. Which
Whoa.
I was like, wow. I mean, you're
That's
talking
crazy.
about a 14-year-old kid here,
Yeah.
or a 16-year-old kid when we actually had this kind of going through this.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. So I started scouring the internet and looking for everything. And I came across a story of this Olympic bobsled driver, Stephen Holcomb, and he had keratoconus before the 2008 Olympics. And he went through this procedure that was experimental at the time. And there was a doctor in California by the name of Brian Boxer Walkler. And he created this new procedure, which basically took vitamin B drops, puts them in the eye of somebody that has keratoconus, and then uses like a blue light. So like if you're familiar with like epoxy, how you can have certain types of epoxy and you put them on there and they'll just never cure. But if you hit it with a blue light for just 1 second, it's cured as hard as any epoxy, right? Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
So blue light curing epoxy. And so he kind of thought about that idea, and he thought, well, what if you could do that with the eye? And so he plays around with these vitamin B drops and blue light, and sure enough, he was able to not cure keratoconus, but to stop it. So these vitamin B drops get in the eye, and then he uses this blue light treatment, and they make the fibers of the eye much stronger. And so keratoconus can't continue to degrade the eye and make it go into that football shape.
Wow. Very
So
interesting.
he did this with Stephen Holcomb, and then he named this procedure the Holcomb procedure. And he also has some surgical things that he does. He puts like this little piece of plastic in the eye that basically holds it up and supports it so that it doesn't want to droop down into this other shape. And so I read this book that he had out there, and I immediately called this doctor. I was like, I need to come out there and see you. So I took my son out there. He says, yeah, he's a candidate. We can do this. And so we went through that procedure with him, and my son's vision went from like 2,200 or something terrible to he has the best vision in our entire family.
Wow. That's awesome.
He's got better than 20/20 vision. So he has to wear these special type of contact lenses. But so this doctor saved my son's vision.
Wow.
And so I obviously was very thankful to this doctor. I started talking to him, and turns out he liked to fish. And so I said, why don't we have you come down to Hawks Cay? We'll have you and Stephen Holcomb, and I'll get my son Turner, and we'll all go out on the boat, and we'll take all three of you all fishing. And sure enough, we did that. And I got to say, that's probably the episode that is the most special, having all three of those guys, including my son, on the boat with me and Rich, and we went tarpon fishing, and we had a great day. And Turner got to spend time with Stephen Holcomb, and they had this disease in common that they had both, overcome, and it was really something special.
That's amazing.
So that was probably, without question, that's the one episode that stands out.
That must have been one of the happiest days of your life.
Well, yeah, I mean, just having, my son, be able to see really well.
Yeah. Back to normal.
And, yeah. It's amazing, and then, to get them all on the boat, that was just a big celebration.
Yeah. That is great. God is good. That's awesome. That is awesome. So your tournament record is stacked with 65 championship wins, if I'm not mistaken. What was
65 top 5?
Okay.
And then there were some wins in there for sure, but that's 65 top 5s, I think.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. What were some of what would you say is the most memorable tournament that you won?
Well, the most memorable was the Great Outdoor Games. I mean, that one was one was really something. There was a lot of pomp and ceremony going on there. Other ones, we really wanted to. We had spent a lot of time, me and Rich, traveling around to Texas, to Louisiana, all over Florida, up to Georgia, fishing in these redfish tournaments. We really wanted to win one of those because that was a true national tournament, and they did have a national championship, but each one of those tournaments had people from all over, basically top guys from all states, and we really wanted to win one of those, and we did win one of those tournaments. It happened to be in Key Largo, so we won one of the redfish tournaments. That one's right up there. Just to compete at that level with those people that were in those tournaments at that time, I mean, it was the best of the best. It really was, and it was very, rewarding to be in the top 5 of any of those tournaments. It was always rewarding to be in the hunt. We finished second a couple times, but to actually win one, that was a really big deal for us. Like and when we did, I kind of thought, okay, for me, that was enough. I didn't really need to take it a lot further than that. Like, I never had a dream that we were going to be professional tournament red fishing team.
Right.
There wasn't enough money in it, right? Like, when we were doing those things, we were bleeding money because we were not guiding every day.
Yeah,
and so
right.
I wanted to do it, but I didn't think that that was really the future. But I really wanted to win one, and we did, and that one was great. Then, you all have these other ones, like the ones that got me started were the red bone tournaments down in the Florida Keys, and these are charity tournaments. You don't win any money. In fact, you're losing money by being in them because you're donating a day of guiding to this tournament. And so the customer pays one day and the guide donates a day. All of that money goes to cystic fibrosis, or it did when these were really active tournaments. And some of these tournaments would have 65 or 70 boats in them. They were really, really popular. Everybody was fishing in them, but even though everyone was fishing in them, only about 10 teams had a chance of winning because of the way that it was set up. If you just showed up there and were assigned a celebrity, you were never going to win. You had no chance. You had no chance. It was the people that really wanted to win the tournament, and there were about 10 in every year that were serious about it, and they pre-fish. They would fish with that guide a bunch. That guide's out there constantly practicing and getting ready for these tournaments. And this tournament was not about money. It was more about, like, it was a reputation. If you won
playing for
a red
respect.
bone, a slam, something like that, it was instant respect.
Wow.
And back then, that's the way that you got a lot of business. That you just had to find some way to stand out a little bit. And if you could place, win, do well in these tournaments, not once, but consistently, it turned into business. People started calling and they wanted to fish with you because you had done well. And you had done well in every one of these. You were constantly and consistently doing very well, if not winning some of these tournaments. And so to win some of those, there was like a fly fishing one that was the super fly, and it would happen the day before the main tournament, and then there would be a 2-day tournament after that. Those were really big for me. To do well in any of those was very rewarding.
Nice. It's very cool. Very cool. Do you have any superstitions?
Yeah, I try not to. Like, I don't want to believe in superstitions, but I also feel like, you know, I mean, so many people say that bananas are bad luck. Then why push it? You know, like I'll eat bananas before. I mean, like some people, like they're like, "Did you eat a banana this morning?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "It's in you. Like you can't get rid of it. Like that's bad luck." So I'm not crazy like that. Like some people are crazy
I'm
like
crazy
that. But sometimes,
like that.
you know,
I haven't had a banana
I
in
will.
like 10 years.
Well, I mean, banana. Now, see, I have a friend also, Anthony Randazzo in Louisiana, and he's probably fished over 6,000 guided trips, and every single one he has a banana. He goes the other way.
He's proven them all wrong.
He's proven it. He's proven. I've got one of my favorite pictures ever is of him netting this huge redfish from the camera boat when we were fishing with him one time. And he's got a half-eaten banana in one hand, and he's netting the redfish with the other.
Oh, that's great! You got to send me that.
He goes the other way, but I remember I would wear the same hat, and so if I'm catching fish, I would, you know, I'm having some good days and stringing a few good days together, I would keep wearing that same hat, and then if it started, I feel like the hat was kind of wearing off. So I stick it in the back of the closet where it was the darkest place I could find. And I felt like that was recharging. And I'd pick up another hat that had been sitting in the dark closet and try that one.
I love it.
You would try.
It sounds
I'm not
crazy.
above trying anything, but I try not to be superstitious. But like, as in the words of Michael Scott, I'm a little stitious.
I love it. I love it. Have you ever had any close calls with death on the water?
No. Very thankfully and gratefully, I really haven't had any close calls with death. There have, I mean, lightning storms and stuff like that, where you're like, man, we really shouldn't be out here. Huge seas, but honestly, no, knock on wood.
Nice. Yeah, knock on wood.
There's a superstition right there.
Sorry, that's one question I ask all my guests.
What, close calls with death?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure some people have, man. Luckily,
some of the stories are crazy. Some of the stories are nuts. And then we've had one guy, Bouncer Smith, who I've talked about multiple times. He was actually responsible for getting the banana from the logo of Fruit of the Loom. He was responsible for getting it removed.
I know. I had him on my podcast too.
Yeah,
I had him on my podcast, and he is the most superstitious about that of anyone.
Yeah,
I think
out of everybody I've talked to, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. He's a great guy though. So I know we're getting close on time here. Let me ask you this: out of everything you sacrificed, what would you say the biggest sacrifice that you've made is in terms of getting where you are today?
Time with the kids when they were little.
Yeah.
You know, as a fishing guide, you know, when you're really working, I mean, I would work 300 days a year. The most I ever worked in one stretch without a day off was 175 days.
Wow.
And that's no days off. And so I would
that's crazy
book every day, you know, for a while there, you know, when you're really trying to, you know, we're in Key West, you're trying to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
It's very expensive there.
Yep.
You know, good communication with my wife. I'm like, look, if this is what we want to do, then this is how we're going to have to get there.
Right.
Because we chose for her to stay home with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm the only one making any money. And that was the choice that we made together, that, okay, we can do this way, but this is the cost.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do, and I have spent a tremendous amount of time with my children, and it is the most important thing, to me by far. But at the same time, in order to make it in an expensive environment, as a fishing guide, that you literally don't know, could you get a hurricane that takes, you know, even if it hits you, that's the worst case scenario, knocks you out of business for a month or more, or even just, is it just a disruption that a hurricane is coming towards you? All your clients cancel their flights, and and you evacuate, and nothing happens. That happens a bunch of times, where it's just this very expensive disruption, because not only do you evacuate, but a lot of times we would evacuate to Disney or something like that, where you're in the middle of the state where it should be, Disney's going to be safe. You are going to be safe there. It's well-built structures in the middle of the state. But the kids are going to love it, but it's expensive. So you're going from where you were making money to now not making any money, and now spending a whole bunch of money.
Spending a lot.
So that's a big disruption. So for, after there were a couple of years there where we were getting a lot of hurricanes, and some of them were just disruptions in schedule like that. And even when, you might have somebody that just cancels their flights. What are you going to do? You're going to argue with them? Like, it looks like it's coming right for us, man. I'm supposed to fish with you in 2 days. You can't. How do you argue with somebody, right?
Yeah,
so anyway, there are some disruptions like that, and so as you're trying to really buy a house or whatever, I would just started booking every single day. I didn't have any planned days off, and then one year we just get a lot of nice days, and that's where you get 175 days in a row of it's just fishable that many days, and you have them all booked, and so you go.
Yeah.
But that, I'm a grandfather now, so I have a 7-month-old grandson.
Oh, congratulations.
And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. And so you just see these little children grow up, and you just don't want to miss any of it, because once you miss it, there's no getting it back. And, unfortunately, for all of us, there are sacrifices that you have to make to do things. But I think that would be the one, is that, time with the kids, but the way that I would structure my schedules, I would generally go pretty early. I'd be one of the first ones to leave the dock, even when it wasn't tarpon season. So if you leave the dock at 6, you're getting home at 2:30 or 3. There's time with the kids.
Yeah, not bad.
Not
You're
bad.
Still exhausted.
You are tired.
Yeah.
You're tired. You have to get ready for the next
around
day.
like a zombie, probably. After 175. That's crazy. Did it get to the point where you started having just more clients that booked you like regularly? So I interviewed this one guy, Russ Kleppinger. He's a tarpon guide. I
know him.
He's got I think he said 3 to 5 clients, and they book him out, and that's his whole thing. So did you ever get to that point?
See, he's exactly what I was talking about when I was saying earlier that a great fishing guide is going to be reflected in that. It's not a new person every other day or every day. You're going to find that somebody really likes to fish with their guide, and they're going to book more and more and more time. And yes, that's exactly how my schedule ended up.
Nice.
I was fishing 300 days with 3 clients.
Oh, that's amazing.
At the end.
That's like the ultimate, that's like the holy grail of guiding right there.
Well, it is, except, and this didn't happen to me because I started doing the TV show full time and didn't have this happen, but I've seen it happen to some of my friends, is that when you do that for many, many years, and then one of those people have health problems or some sort of an issue, or maybe they die.
Right.
It's hard to replace them. Now, it's not hard to replace them when everybody's in their prime and you're getting 10 phone calls a day for every day you've got.
Yeah.
But you do that for 30 years, and then all of a sudden you lose one of those major clients. It can be really difficult to replace them. And that particular fishing guide that's been doing the 3 days, he's like part of the family. So now just throw a new person on their boat every day.
Yeah.
It's not much fun.
Wow.
It's not much fun for those guys. So
got to rebuild it. Yeah.
Yep. Plus you probably haven't put any time or effort into your website or your social media. Why would you? You don't need any of that stuff, right?
Right.
Like,
Russ doesn't even have
Russ
doesn't even have a website, he said.
No, he's great. I've had him on the podcast, and he's full-time professional dude. He's
Yeah.
got he catches a lot of toughened.
Yeah, man, definitely. I would love to fish with him one day. One of my last questions is, if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice before you started this path, what would it be?
Good question. A good question I've thought about before, and I would think that over time that advice changes.
Interesting.
I don't know. Luckily, I got some good advice from other people that I stuck to, and one of the things is that it's not all about catching fish. That's a really good one. But for myself, I think I took a lot of things very, very seriously that maybe it didn't require that level of seriousness.
Like what?
Looking, in hindsight, just every day, the professionalism and what I was trying to do as a fishing guide. I'm not sure. I think I could have had a little more fun.
Oh, okay. I feel like you
But
took it too
who knows?
seriously, but I feel like yeah.
Who knows if you wind it back and you have a little bit more fun, is the result where you ended up? I don't know. I think very fondly of my guide career, and I certainly didn't do everything right, and I certainly made plenty of mistakes, but it led me to a place that I'm extremely happy in my life. And so do you second guess it? I don't know. Maybe the mistakes are kind of what leads you to where you are.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm pretty happy with what fishing did for me and what I've been able to do for fishing. And I don't know. I certainly could have done things better in certain situations, but I don't know. It's hard to second guess.
Yeah. Seems like it all worked out.
Well, I don't think that it's all worked out, because I don't think that it is over.
Oh,
in
no
a lot
way.
of ways, I feel like I'm just getting started.
No way.
And
yeah.
And so it has. I feel like I've been extremely blessed. I feel like I have been extremely lucky in many ways, including timing.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to. My sons have asked me about what do I think about them going into the guiding business, and neither one of them was really that much into it. My oldest son that had the eye condition, he was an elk hunting guide for a little while.
Cool.
He kind of went into that a little bit, did it for a couple of years, and decided that wasn't what he wanted to do at all. And guiding isn't for everyone. It's really not for everyone. If it's not for you, it doesn't mean that you're not a great fisherman or a great person or whatever. I mean, it's hard. It's a hard way to make a living, and there are people that take guiding to an art level and do not mind being the one that does not have the rod in their hand. And some people just don't like that.
Yeah.
Like, some people want to have that rod in their hand. In my son's case, he wanted to have the bow in his hand and be the one, hunting the elk. It wasn't doing it for him to be the guide. So I don't know. The timing of my career, there were certain things that I don't know that you could replicate. Like, for instance, when I was out in Wyoming, the movie A River Runs Through It came out my second year there, and there was an influx of business like we've never seen before or since. And so we went from having 6 guides at the outfit to the next year we had 27.
Damn.
I mean, everybody full. All 27 working more than the 6 were working previously.
Wow. That's great.
That's how
though.
that movie did things. And, the latest thing would maybe be COVID, where we had an influx of people fishing,
Mm-hmm.
but we've never seen anything quite like that. And at the same time as that movie coming out, we had real technological innovations on fly rods, on fly lines. We had the Vortex Wader came out. Drift boat design became available for boat companies to mass produce drift boats. I mean, before, just a little bit before that, if you wanted a real drift boat, you had to build it in your garage. And you could buy a kit that would show you all of the different cuts that you needed to make and everything like that. But drift boats were wooden, and there were, I mean, maybe you could get like an aluminum one from the Northeast, like Koffler or something like that. But I mean, when I first started guiding out west, most of us fished out of a John boat. And just a few years later, everybody's got these manufactured, beautiful drift boats, fiberglass. And now, you know, you wouldn't think about it. And at first, when I first got to Key West, there were only a couple of anglers, private anglers, that owned a skiff. And every other skiff that you saw on the water were guides. Today, there's so many private boats on the water, and you know, it's just different. Like,
yeah, it's changed.
I don't know that the timing of my career and the people that started when I started and have been fishing like around that time, it's just a lot of different things have changed. There's not like one thing you can point to, but I mean, just like more skiff companies, more drift boat companies. Everything's gotten better. Everything's gotten cheaper. Everything's gotten more accessible, and therefore more people have it, and less people need fishing guides, I think.
Yeah.
Like than they used to.
More accessible, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I feel like I could talk to you for another 2 hours, bro.
Well, we can do it again.
Awesome.
We can do it again. I've enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Tom. I'm a huge fan.
You're very welcome.
It's been a big deal for me to be able to interview you, so I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm honored to do it. Thank you very much for asking me.
Thank you again, and we'll definitely be in touch. Maybe we'll line up a part 2.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, sounds good, Tom. You have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too.
All right, talk to you soon.
Okay, see you.
Bye.
Don't you walk on me.